live. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Sean.
How are you today?
I'm fine.
Yourself? Excellent. I'm excellent, thank you. I'm really happy to be here today. I'm Sean Lavana. I'm joined by Bill Coleman. Katie Rosa here as always.
Hello.
We have a special guest today, Joe Rigo.
Hello.
Joe is our director of HR here at PayFactors.
Good intro. Thank you.
I felt like you were going to skip that part.
I wasn't. I was going to come back.
Sorry.
No, I was totally going to skip it.
I feel like you tend to skip the intro part.
I'm bad at my job. All right, what we wanted to talk about today on today's podcast is salary compression. An interesting topic, which is why we brought our head of HR in today to discuss it. Why don't we level set? Joe, what is salary compression?
So salary compression is when you have... So when you bring an employee in at a higher level, then there's a couple of different ways to look at it, right? But, you know, one of the ones is you bring someone in because the market's changed so that their pay is either close to or higher than their manager. So the difference or the delta between the manager and the employee is small, so it gets compressed.
And why is this an issue?
I mean, internal equity issues, you know, people feeling valued, you know, it's hard to keep up with the market when, you know, especially in a hot market where, you know, the manager can sometimes feel like, well, I don't want to pay that because it's too close to my salary. So you might run into issues where managers, you know, have a bias and they don't want to hire someone that is going to be too close to them in salary.
Or the manager feels undervalued or taken advantage of in some ways.
Correct.
Is this most common in certain types of companies, or does this happen across the board?
I don't know if it's certain types of companies. I think I think you see pockets of it when in certain positions where there's a lot of demand and not a lot of candidates out
Supply
there.
demand
Supply,
issue.
right? Exactly. Supply
like-
demand issue.
So like
Data scientists, engineers.
Right. Yeah, I don't see it as a kind of across the board issue. I think it's very limited.
And is this more common to like where I would say that PayFactors is probably a high growth company? Like,
As would I.
is it more common in high growth companies, or do you see? Does it not matter? Does it not discriminate?
I mean, I would imagine that you see it more in high-growth companies, but again, even in companies that aren't in high-growth mode, if there's a pocket of their population where they are expanding or they're looking for a specific type of position to be filled, in that position, regardless of the company, is high, you know, in high demand, you could still see it there.
Got it.
Although I think there would be a surprise in companies that in places where minimum wage is about to jump or has just jumped to $15 an hour, not smoothly, but the big jump, and you're going to have managers and their underlings either
Getting
at the
pretty,
same
getting
pay.
pretty close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, and that it'll catch people off guard, I suspect, in some of these like retailers, fast food
Yes.
places, and
Yep.
you know, places where there's a lot of people that are at the low end of the pay scale.
Yeah, and obviously that can happen because of all the recent votes that happened in November, where either states, municipalities, where that is rising. But there's even a big proxy effect that we're seeing because of Amazon announcing their raise, where they're effectively like the minimum wage bar in a lot of areas now. So that might be jumping up in a big way, no matter what, even if it's not the
competitively,
rule, right?
if
Yeah,
not
exactly,
legally.
exactly.
Or legislatively, I guess would be the right term.
Legislatively, typically is more of a ramp. You're right? Like it's like this year, then this year, then this year, and it goes up a little bit every year. But now Amazon's like, we're just going to go across the board, $15 to $18 an hour, depending.
Because
So, like,
we can.
what do you do in these situations? Then can you avoid it?
I don't know that you can. I don't know that you can avoid it. I don't know that anyone has the right answer to it either. I think it's something that, you know, it's sort of case by case. You know, I think companies, if it's a high growth company, absorbing, you know, just kind of bringing every manager up to increase their salary so that the band or the difference gets bigger, that can be hard to absorb from a company perspective. Yeah. It might also not reflect on kind of where the manager is. personally. So I think you sort of have to look at it case by case. But Bill, I'd be curious to hear your
you
thoughts.
manage to it, I think, and you have to, you have two things two people you can approach. You have the manager and the employee, for lack of a better name, for the other person, the prospect, right?
Yeah.
And look for different ways to pay them, whether it's, is there a signing bonus or something that will keep the prospect more in line with your structure versus, just a starting salary. Because another issue that comes up in compression is the new hire is higher than all of the existing people doing the same job.
Correct.
Which is, a second factor in this discussion, that it's a little less clear. Like, the manager knows what his or her employee is getting paid. The colleagues don't necessarily know that. But when they do find out,
that could be there's
a whole other issue. And so then, do you want to raise all of your engineers, to use Joe's example, up to the level of the newest hire, or do you want to have a plan to do that over time, treat this new hire as an anomaly, and make a plan so that the new hire moves up slower than the current employees and they move up faster and catch up over 6 months, a year, 2 years, or whatever.
And can you do that in states where it's equal pay for equal work?
I was just going to
It depends on the rules, in the...
How gray it is.
Right, and what the timeline for correction is. Although, can you, I think, and maybe I misunderstood the question. The question is, can you hire somebody in at...
More or less, yeah.
At a different rate, at a higher rate. And I don't know.
I know the law's gone into effect, and I think companies are still sort of grappling with it, right? The law doesn't necessarily take into effect market conditions.
That's just talking here in Massachusetts, right? Like
correct. Yes. Sorry, just in Massachusetts. So, I think it depends on a lot of factors. Again, what the kind of the structure and the gender of the team looks like. Is it a team that everyone does exactly the same thing? Are they similar? You can have teams that have a lot of different people doing similar but different jobs. So I think there's a lot of factors there. But I think, to Bill's point, it's still a little bit gray.
We're talking, though, a lot, and just because of our experience, high-growth organizations. What if you are a much more mature organization, 20,000 employees, you have your structures? Are you less likely to run into this? Because would you, at the front end, would your recruiting team just be like, sorry, you make too much, right? Would that be an issue?
I would think in companies that are larger in scale, you probably do run into it less, because I do think there is more of this is what we pay.
This is exactly what we're paying.
This is the range. We don't deviate from this, and you're outside of the range, and we can't even talk to you, or
like you wouldn't get through that initial call.
Right. So I think...
And that would be similar, and sort of tying back to the last question, California, with their, you have to post the salary for the job, or that's the way people are responding to the rules out there.
So you
self-select, right.
Yeah.
And that the employees that are coming in, or the candidates that are coming in, are going to be picking jobs that match their salaries. And I do think the high-growth companies are much more... They're high-growth and they're faster and more nimble about making decisions, which can help and hurt in this situation, because he's like, I met Sean, I want Sean, I'm going to hire Sean, and, Joe,
whatever it takes type of thing, right? Yeah.
Whatever it takes, and then we're going to deal with the problems after the fact, whereas, a large established company has rules and guidelines, and it's a lot harder to just say, oh, we're going to pay outside the band.
Yeah.
And so it would be almost impossible for it to happen otherwise, for salary compression to happen otherwise in a large organization because you're going to have, here's your promotional path, right? Each job has a different grade with it, which means you're going to get paid. So it can't really happen otherwise in that kind of a structure unless somebody's coming in from the external.
Yeah, I don't ever like to say it can't ever happen, but I don't think it's unlikely.
Black or white.
Yeah, it's unlikely. Can't.
Well, I would say in large organizations with large teams, you're also probably more likely to have a broader spread of people, and you're more likely to have somebody on the team who's earning more than everyone else, significantly more than everyone else, or significantly more than the the midpoint of the range, so that new hire comes in and they actually will fit in better to the spread.
What about in situations where, like, if you're at an organization that you give annual increases of 3%, and you've got someone who's tenured and been here for a decade, and then you've got, like, the new guy in town or girl in town, who is kind of kept up with market pace. Like, what do you do in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going back to Bill's point of you sort of have to then look forward, right? What is the plan, right? Again, can companies absorb giving, someone who's been at a company for 10 years, a 10, 20% raise to get them to kind of market, at one time?
I guess it's on you, the organization, then, right? If you haven't been keeping, like, up with the market at
right,
all.
because that becomes a retention issue. Like, you're
Yeah.
going into kind of other HR issues.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you're moving on from one. You're sort of adding on more issues. But I think it's about, kind of coming up with that long-term plan. So maybe, if you're a company that does a 3% every year, you take a look at all your employees, you figure out who's below market, and then okay, this person or this group of people, this year they'll get 4%, next year they'll get 5%, or whatever the case may be, to try and get them to market over a period of time so the company can absorb the additional cost.
And a follow-on question to that is, if you realize that's happening in your organization and HR is looking to, I don't want to say make amends, but make up for that, are you messaging that to the employee, or are you doing it like you said, like normally we're 3% this year, you're getting 4%?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the company and the company, the
Risk
manager,
tolerance.
risk tolerance. I think there's a lot of, I don't know how many companies would be super upfront about saying, "Oh, we've been paying you under market." I think
Yeah.
that's a tough thing to say.
Conversation.
It's not going to show up in the newsletter.
Yeah, pretty much.
Although, could an example of that be like Salesforce, where they blatantly took a PR effort to do it, and they were like, they took the equal,
That was
Yes, that was
Okay.
correct.
Right.
but they were very bold about
Right.
that. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on kind of the why, right? If you're doing it to be in compliance with new laws, maybe you do have to be more upfront about it to show that you have a plan, because that's part, especially in Massachusetts, that's part of the law, that you have to show that you have a plan to correct it. And so part of that plan might be publicizing it to your employees. But I can also see why you wouldn't want to, and you're just doing it on the back end. There's no requirement that says you have to tell the employees why you're doing it. So I don't. I mean, I guess to answer your question, I don't know.
Okay.
I think it really depends on kind of the.
I imagine it makes a difference whether or not your employees see that there is a problem. Like, I think companies and, just human nature is you don't want to announce that you fixed a problem that nobody knew existed.
Fair point.
If you have people complaining about something or saying, I feel underpaid and blah, 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 and then, the CEO or the head of HR comes out and says, we've heard you and this is what we're doing. That's a win in most cases. If nobody's complaining about something, you say, oh, by the way, we've been underpaying people for the last
Yeah, that's like
10
opening
years.
Pandora's box, probably.
Yeah. But I did want to get back to something in Katie, your original question, HR, having raises of 3% a year or whatever. It's like, in theory, those raises should be, in theory, exactly the same as what that person outside the company was getting. You were saying they're keeping up with the market. Your raises inside the company should be keeping up with the market. And in fact, the same thing should be happening, that the band is moving up, and that the person is moving from a low level engineer, say, to a higher level engineer one. Mm-hmm. And so they should be getting raises because of the value of the dollar, cost of living is going up, and also their skill set and their value in the marketplace is going up.
Got it.
Right, it should be what the market dictates, not just what your budget has room for.
Correct.
In a perfect world.
And that's sort of, I just want to make sure that was clear, because that, although it's, we sometimes joke about it, it's always 3%, or give or take.
Yeah.
2.9
but
to
that's
3.1.
right. right. So there's a lot of
Very
volatility,
black and white, I think.
plus or minus 1/10%. But that's the way the markets have been moving. Now that again, this is
For
that's
some jobs.
past podcast, right? I was going to say it's not all jobs are moving at that average, and
Yeah.
so you gotta be careful because these hot jobs, the ones that are likely to have compression, are also the ones that are likely to move way faster at a higher rate than the overall.
And if you're
average.
not adjusting, then you're, like you were saying, you run into the retention issues and all of that.
Correct.
So, isn't it though, and maybe this goes back to something we were talking about earlier, where, when you talk about equal pay for equal work, for example, and it gets a little grayer there, I know, but isn't the easy answer here potentially just to have title shifts and slight job description shifts?
So it's not just about title, especially if you're tying it back to the equal pay laws that are
Correct, right. That's where it
Right.
gets
Yeah. So
easier.
yes and no. I mean, I think just a titles in and of itself don't matter.
Right.
To be honest, I think they matter to employees, right?
Yeah.
So don't take that the wrong way. But I think it's the job description, and really the job description of what people are actually doing, not just the job description of what you think a job should be doing, but what is the person in the job doing? Because I think there's a lot of times there's a delta there, right? Like that you create a job description, you think this is what they're going to do, they start the job, and then you find out they have additional skill sets, or things change and morph, and 6 months later, a year later, they're doing something either a little bit different or vastly different. So the job description should kind of keep up with the person.
Mm-hmm. But how often, realistically, and maybe there's no right answer or no way to know this, but how often are most companies updating their job description?
So I think I don't know that there's a set rule on it. I think best practice is once a year. I think that's hard to undo.
right. Those.
But probably even too slow, arguably, right? Perfect world, right?
Sure,
Like, that's an
sure.
improvement.
But
Especially depending on those hot, like if it's a hot market job or a hot job, right? Like
right.
that could be changing very quickly. Or high growth company, whatever.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, in an ideal world, it's yearly, potentially even more than that for those specific jobs. But realistic, it's hard to do.
Yeah,
Right. I
never.
think historically, it's sort of been filed. You know what I mean? Like it's okay, we did it, and
we need to do it, or like back burner type thing.
right. Or it's we'll do it when someone gets promoted, or they switch their job. Then you look at it. I think it's sort of been more one-off. Just from sort of my experience and kind
Just
of
as needed,
but I think best practice is to do it on an annual basis.
Well, and I'll probably say what everyone's thinking and nobody wants to say is that, in this, comp and coffee world of the HR people talking, that's all well and good, but like outside the door and where all the line managers are, they're like, fine, we got to do this for HR. We'll
Sure.
sign off on the job description, but this is what I want you to do.
Right.
And that there's this black market underworld of, managers telling their employees what, their responsibilities are that are different from what's been documented.
Right, and this is an entirely different podcast
Podcast.
topic. But wouldn't that be interesting, though? Isn't that more about communicating the value, comp and HR, communicating the value of why this is important, what it really means to you, and what effect it can have on your talent, whether you retain them or not effectively?
Yes, and, it ties into everything, to performance reviews, to, salary, to, and even to, in some cases, Fair Labor Standards Act stuff. Are you exempt or non-exempt? It's like, what are you, back to what Joe said, what are you doing, not what does the paper say your job is supposed to do.
Right.
So pin there for a future topic. Anything else we should talk about with salary compression today?
Where does salary compression start? Is it or is it a chicken versus the egg kind of scenario?
I mean, to me, I think it has to start in a hot market, right? Because otherwise, you'd be able to plan for it and sort of know where the market is, right?
If the supply exceeds the demand, there's going to be less rising costs.
Right.
So somebody would be
Fair.
effectively, perfect world, blah, blah, blah. Somebody would be happy to have the job and take it at what would be the fair market wage then, as opposed to saying, I have another offer for $20K more than you're giving me.
I guess what I'm asking though is like internally, like, is it a issue, like, the hiring manager is like, I found this great candidate, I want them at whatever the cost is it, or is it kind of, is there no right
No,
answer here?
I think a compression issue becomes an issue when the manager has an issue with it, right? So I think it's,
I see.
and I didn't say that very eloquently, but
Right. You trigger the possibility, the way Katie said, which is, like when you start as a HR person, you start hearing things like superstar, got to have this person, worth whatever we can pay.
doesn't matter what the budget is.
Right. Those sort of things, that kind of argument, that's where you are triggering a chance of somebody at one level being paid very close to or even more than somebody at the next level above them.
Got it.
And then, what Joe was getting at was it's not a problem until somebody has a problem with it.
So you're managing to not have, how do I word this? You want to manage to not have someone have a problem with it. Is that accurate, what I'm trying to say?
I mean, a mature manager will be like, I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
Because this helps me get my job done, and I'm going to
it's saving.
I'm going to, get my bonus, or incentive payout at the end of the year if I hire that person.
Mm-hmm.
But the sort of newer managers or people that are more pay sensitive or pay driven or just more hierarchical in mind will then have a problem with it. And I have seen in past jobs where managers very cleverly do that and then say, now I need a raise. So it's sort of like a fake issue.
Huh.
It's like, I'm going to hire somebody to work for me that makes almost as much as I do and then use that as an excuse.
And does that
Or
Well, aren't they
leverage.
going to be sad when
It depends. I've seen it work.
like everything else in HR, it comes back to a people problem. That's what we're dealing with here.
It's true, right? I mean, I think that's the point, though, right? I mean, it's about managing the people in the situation. It's not necessarily managing the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've seen it work and I've seen it not work. To your point.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm not wrong, I think I benefited from it once, although I had nothing to do with it.
I think I benefited from once. Matter of fact, I'm giving you my playbook.
I'm not that kind of man.
By the way, Joe, Bill needs to meet with you after today's meeting. Somebody's making almost as much as he is. All right, well. All right, well, I think we'll leave it there today. We'll be back with a lot more in the new year here. We're going to get more regular with this. We are very excited to have a whole litany of topics. We have a producer now.
Yeah, shout
We're
out
getting
to
legit.
Tessa.
We are getting legit. If you hear us mention Tessa, she's the new producer.
Hi, Tessa.
Give her some feedback and comments on LinkedIn, in the comments of iTunes.
Rate us, as always. Hit us up on Twitter, @PayFactors. What else? Where else can they find us? Email us, coffee@payfactors.com.
And in your local coffee shop. They can find us there.
Perhaps.
With Bill's smooth, dulcet tones.
Sean just sitting there typing out some.
It's probably a pretty good chance. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for your time today. We look forward to the next one. If you have any feedback in the meantime, let us know. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.